Welcome back. The U.S. State Department has once again expressed concern about detentions and communications restrictions in Kashmir. It has also urged the Indian government to hold elections in the state at the earliest. We caught up with former U.S. Ambassador to India, Tim Roemer, on how the U.S. sees the present situation in Kashmir and the extreme rhetoric coming from Pakistan as well. He also spoke about U.S. expectations from Modi government 2.0. Our first question, Ambassador Roemer, and I'm going to quote again from Imran Khan's article in the New York Times. He said, if the world does nothing to stop Indian assault on Kashmir and its people, there will be consequences for the whole world as two nuclear-armed states get even closer to a direct military confrontation. He's used the nuclear word several times in his article. What do you think is the attempt and the intention?
Well, the United States and I think the world are very concerned about the situation in Kashmir. I was fortunate enough when I was U.S. Ambassador and lived in Delhi to visit Kashmir personally and take the time to go up there to meet with the people. It is a gorgeous, beautiful, unique, and very special place. And the world recognizes both the beauty of Kashmir, but also the volatility. And the entire world is urging restraint and calm, not hyping, different rhetoric and language. The world is urging both Pakistan and India to talk to one another, to bilaterally address the concerns here, and that both sides, the Pakistani side and the Indian side, respect, human rights, respect political representation, and work toward peace in both their roles.
Right. So you're saying that the international community is urging both sides, India and Pakistan, to exercise restraint, reduce the rhetoric as well. But what do you feel about the statements that are coming from the Pakistani leadership, especially Imran Khan?
I don't think that his op-ed in the New York Times helped in the short term. I thought it was too personally filled with attacks against Mr. Modi, one leader to another. I thought, the rhetoric was somewhat extreme. Again, we need our leadership in that part of the world, Imran Khan and with Mr. Modi, to exercise calm, restraint, to work toward peace and stability in that part of the world. We know how volatile it can be. We know that rhetoric and hype and talking about nuclear issues is not very helpful. I did see that Imran Khan spoke on September 3rd and said that Pakistan would never initiate a war with India and not use nuclear forces. I thought that was a step away from his op-ed piece in the New York Times, and one that was a little bit more helpful. And, knowing Mr. Modi as well, having met with him several times, I hope that Mr. Modi will continue to have, ears and eyes and a vision toward peace and stability and calm in the region.
When Donald Trump speaks about mediating between India and Pakistan, what is in store for the United States and Donald Trump here? Currently, the priorities for the U.S. president is to settle the peace deal in Afghanistan. Where does Kashmir and where does the Indo-Pak dispute fit in Donald Trump's scheme of things?
Well, I think if you're a leader in the region, you've seen a couple trends that you've paid attention to that can have domino effects on peace and stability in the future of the region. First of all, as you alluded to, we have the U.S. and the Taliban in negotiations to have the possibility of U.S. troops being carefully, slowly withdrawn from that part of the region. We don't want to create any kind of vacuum as a result of that. We want stability in the region. We want assurances for India that that does not threaten them in any way. That's key, and I'm sure Mr. Modi is paying careful attention to that, as Mr. Imran Khan is as well. Secondly, again, you mentioned this, Mr. Trump, I think several days ago, indicated that he might want to mediate between Pakistan and India. I think this was diplomatic gaffe on his part. We all know that the Indians, Mr. Modi, would not ask the United States to intercede in Kashmir or in a Pakistan-Indian dispute. We know the policy is firmly that these two countries and two peoples will work bilaterally, and we will support those bilateral efforts, as I did when I was U.S. ambassador, doing everything we can to support those efforts. And thirdly, I think Mr. Modi, having just won a resounding election victory, was looking at, what does he look at over the next 5 years or so during his administration in the near neighborhood and the far neighborhood for peace and stability. So there are a lot of moving parts right now, and certainly, Mr. Trump needs to pay attention to this part of the world. He does not have a U.S. ambassador to Pakistan. He has several key positions in the State Department with Southeast Asia jurisdiction empty. This does not show the kind of attention that we as the United States citizens want to show. But given that, I believe that, and many of us believe in the United States, that the U.S.-India partnership is strong, it is vibrant, it is the most important relationship going forward in the world in so many ways. And we need to do more to make sure that it goes in a positive direction with some of the trade issues that we've run into lately.
Now, shifting focus to the Indo-US partnership, Ambassador Roemer, at this juncture, when President Trump is heading for his election, Narendra Modi has been elected again, what will be the US government's expectations from the Indo-US relationship?
Well, first of all, let me tell you how strong and deep and sound the relationship is, and I hope that we continue in the Trump administration to pay even more attention to it, to make it even deeper, to expand the strategic opportunities where we can work together on education, on health care, on the military side, on the space to the deep oceans, on science. This is a relationship that we share common values between our two peoples as democracy. We are also two peoples that share a lot in terms of what we want for the future, the respect for human rights, the values of the rule of law. These are fundamentally important. And then we have this strong Indian-American diaspora in the United States that is becoming more and more politically involved and more powerful here in the United States. Mr. Modi will be coming to Houston in the days ahead, and I think there'll be 55,000 Indian Americans and Americans there in Houston to greet him and to warmly talk about strategic relations with the United States. This needs to be worked on very carefully. Trade is a tender issue these days with both economies slowing down. We need to diplomatically work through some of these tensions. Mr. Modi wants foreign direct investment. He wants more opportunities in India. The United States can provide that, but our businesses need a level playing field. Our businesses need a competitive playing field and not more regulations on what they can do when they come in. Apart from trade, as we try to resolve some of the intellectual property rights issues and trade issues, we also need to be working on the sides on the military, on the counterterrorism, on sharing intelligence, on education opportunities, on health care. These can go forward even though we are trying to settle some of the trade issues on the other side. It should not hold back our opportunities to go forward on some of these other issues.
Okay. And Ambassador Roemer, trade is a very tricky issue right now between India and United States. There are several sensitive and complicated points. Do you think that President Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi at this juncture can arrive at a trade understanding or a trade deal of some sort on certain items?
I do. I'm optimistic with some cautionary notes on that because, as you alluded to, or you noted directly in this case, Trade is a very sensitive issue to both peoples and to both countries. Nationalism and populism is a world trend. Mr. Modi is stressing making India stronger on the manufacturing side. So is Mr. Trump on our side. So how do we try to look at trade as a win-win proposition rather than a zero-sum proposition? How can the United States companies get more access to India on a fair and level playing field while protecting their intellectual property rights and create more growth for India? Both of our economies are starting to slow a little bit. India, for the first time, getting into,
Right.
5.8% growth rates. The United States slipping into the lower 2% area. We both need our economies to work through these trade issues and not come to the kind of impasse and trade war that we have with China.
Okay.
How can the United States and India continue to set a pace as two democracies to break through the trade situation where the U.S. and China have not been able to do that? And I think with our strategic relationship as deep as it is, our two peoples as close as they are, the trade opportunity being one that's so critically important to slowing economies, we should be able to work this through and a win-win scenario for both sides. And that is essential in the next few months to do that.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Eye. Thank you for watching. Tune in same time next week for a quick check of all the big international stories.